and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. I am your host, Kris. We are, of course, brought to you by classicfootballshirts.co.uk. Whether you're a full hipster or classic collector, they have something for you. Delayed show this week due to the Easter festivities, if you can call them that. Happy birthday, Jesus, and all that jazz. So we produced an English breakfast for you yesterday, so please do give that a listen, where we covered lots of stuff, including Brighton being a Premier League side. But enough of that nonsense, because today we're back talking European football. I've got Joel and I've got John with me this evening, so good evening to you both.
Evening, Chris. Evening, Joel.
Evening.
Right, we are going to waste no time. We're going to jump straight into it because we've got lots to talk about, and we couldn't start anywhere else but Spain for Tony Adams' dance moves. More on that later. We're going to start this week in La Liga. Right, Joel, we're going to start with probably one of the less fashionable games, but the one that produced the most excitement, have to be said. That was a Friday evening game between Athletic Bilbao, or Athletic Club, whichever you prefer. They hosted Las Palmas. 6-goal game. Quite the entertaining affair, this, of a Friday evening, was it not?
Yeah, it was. And interestingly, Las Palmas seemed to never play on a Saturday or a Sunday. They always seem to have the Friday night fixture or the Monday night fixture. And I watched this game, obviously 5-1 at the weekend, and I looked back at Las Palmas' last 6 games this period since Kiki Setien said he's leaving. They lost 4-3, they won 1-0, they lost 3-1, they won 3-1, they won 4-1, they lost 5-1 at the weekend. So Las Palmas, you guaranteed entertainment, and probably why they keep getting a decent slot when it comes to picking the fixtures for the TV games. So they seem to be just sailing through the season now, Las Palmas, where, you know, whatever comes their way, they'll just play the way they want to play. They don't really seem to have a set system of playing now. It just seems to be kind of all-out attack, and this is why we're getting such high-scoring games. On Friday night, it was crazy. The Bilbao were 3-1 up after 20 minutes. Mikel San Jose put them ahead. And Monain made it 2-0 after 9 minutes. And then Las Palmas, as they do, came back into it through Bigas, made it 2-1. 2-1. And Adjariz made it 3-1, Monain 4-1, and Adjariz made it 5-1. Interesting, Adjariz, which is his 22nd goal of the season. So at 36, he's doing absolutely phenomenal for Bilbao. But it just felt one of those games that you've seen with Las Palmas before, when they're just kind of completely lacking control. Although they do play really nice football. Rocky Mesa in the midfield, those who've seen him play, such a good footballer, and he dictates play for them, but they just can't defend. And on the road, they are particularly vulnerable. A really good result for Bilbao. I think Bilbao have just kind of left it too late to try and get in the Champions League. They'll probably get 5th now, because Villarreal have a really tricky spot at the minute in terms of injuries and suspensions. So Bilbao are looking like they're going to make 5th their own. With Sevilla only winning 1 in 7, and San Pauli kind of blowing up and now looking at leaving, going to Argentina, you kind of feel Bilbao have missed a trick, and they really could have pushed for that 4th spot had they kind of put some form together a little bit earlier, like they are at the minute. For Las Palmas, the bigger picture, I did some digging around this week in terms of who's linked with the job. There weren't too many people linked. The one thing that did come up a lot was Michael Laudrup, which is interesting because you kind of feel if they're looking for a bit of defensive stability and trying to move away from, maybe playing nice football but conceding goals, I don't really think Michael Laudrup is the man for Las Palmas, but he seems to be the favourite at the minute. Although the other person I saw linked was Juan Carlos Unzue, who's obviously Barcelona's assistant, who was heavily linked with the job, and as I said a couple of weeks ago, was the favourite for the job, but Juventus happened, and a couple of other things have happened which have made it maybe seem that he won't get the job at Barcelona now, and he would be probably above Laudrup for the Las Palmas job. So quite a bit going on with both clubs. I think Las Palmas have got a decent footing with which one to build on next season. I think Bilbao certainly have. But obviously, like we've discussed before, Valverde doesn't seem like he's going to stay at Bilbao. So he could be, obviously the change is going to be made at Bilbao. So both teams have new managers next season. And it'd be interesting to see how they both do. Obviously, Las Palmas have got Hesse on loan from PSG. Can they keep hold of him? I think he is crucial for them to kind of build something from. But yeah, again, watching Las Palmas, you're always guaranteed goals and always guaranteed entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely that. And Bilbao 6th in the table now. It's quite the season given the resources they work with. And I did see a brilliant journal like this. I saw a brilliant sort of comparison of two. Is it 36 Adarices now? 34? Did you say? 34. 36. There was a brilliant comparison between him and Adriano, he who got very fat. And it said one player's career started at 36 and he's scoring goals. The other one's career had finished 4 years earlier, which I thought was brilliant.
That's being generous to Adriano as well.
Yeah,
I think he finished a bit earlier than 32.
He's a big old unit as well. Jesus, the size of that man now. Wow. They talk about fat Ronaldo. I think Adriano actually ate Ronaldo. It's crazy. But yeah, quite the rebirth or renaissance really is a better word for Adariz, who keeps scoring goals.
There was a similar thing actually talking about Adariz, and there was I think it was in another universe. There's a Spanish national team where Adariz has 100 caps, and so does Borja Valero from Fiorentina, which I think is fair. Just shows how many good Spanish players there are that just can't even make it to the national side.
Yeah, Valero he's always been a very good player, isn't he, as well at Fiorentina? So good player to watch. Keeps them ticking over, as it were. But we will switch gears to another game then. Talk to me about Sporting Gijón and Real Madrid then, Joel. It's a must-win game for Real for obvious reasons. Obviously, Barca keeping up the pressure. We'll touch on them in a second as well. It's quite a lot of pressure on Real Madrid, and fair to say they got bailed out slightly, no pun intended, because it wasn't Mr. Bale who was the star. It was a young man by the name of Isco, who's all of a sudden hit some very good form.
He has, and interesting with Isco, I saw a stat today that he's played the 11th most minutes in La Liga, but the 22nd most minutes in the Champions League. I think even Fabio Contrao's played more in the Champions League than Isco. So he's very much a man for La Liga, and he's very much put some form together recently because he's had more game time as Zidane has chosen to rotate the team recently. It felt inevitable that Madrid would win the game on Saturday. They left it so late again. I'd be really interested to see the stats now. We'll look at the stats, how many late winners they've had past 90 minutes in this season, or even in this run-in from about February onwards. They seem to have an unbelievable belief. It was one of those games on Saturday that Gijón went ahead twice and were pegged back twice and then lost, and you kind of felt this was like a classic team that goes on to win the league against a team that probably is going to get relegated, in that the team who wins the league can just step it up when they need to step it up. And kind of then go and win the game, albeit they left it really late to do at the weekend. I think there was something like 1:30 left when Isco hit the winner. Madrid did start the better team and should have gone ahead through Vasquez. And against the run of play, Dijon Cobb put Gijón ahead. But like I said, 3 minutes later, Isco equalises, so that kind of quells any fears they had of losing the game. But then Gijón kind of stuck in the game, played the way that they play, and went ahead through Vesca. But again, something like 5 minutes later, Morata equalised. So it very much felt like it was going to be a draw. And I think with my Barcelona hat on, I was hoping it was going to be a draw. Then Isco just popped up with a really good finish. And he's now proving to be the man that Zidane is going to. Interestingly, there was the lack of contract situation for him. That's now on the table, and he probably will sign it. He said that he's going to stay. There was definite interest from Barcelona, and he definitely made a move for him with a view to run his contract down, and he takes a large fee. Not this summer, the next one. I think he's considered that, but Madrid have made him a good offer, and I think he'll be close to one of the highest paid players there. So they do see a future for him. It's just getting him in the team consistent. That is probably going to be the problem. And will he regularly not be in, what is deemed a gala 11 when everyone's fit? For Sporting Gijón, it's disappointing with Leganés losing. You kind of felt this was an opportunity that they're going to look back and think, well, we've missed this, because that would have been an absolute fantastic point for them. Rubi's done well since he's gone in there to replace Abelardo, but it's just looking like it's not going to be enough. for them to stay up. The gap is just probably too wide now, and you think the psychological boost they could have got from beating Madrid would have been huge. Looking at Madrid, this do seem like they're obviously in total control of the title at the minute. As we'll touch on the game coming up at the weekend, everything Zidane does at the minute is working well. The rotations are working well. He's kind of got a La Liga team and a Champions League team going, which is perfect when you're winning games. When you stop winning games, it'll be questioned as to why he's rotating the squad so much. But at the minute, everything he's touching, he's kind of turning into gold, and they look well on course for the double this season, obviously with the Champions League as well. The weekend is big, but he's allowed himself at the weekend to rest. I think it was 9 or 10 players, so they're all fresh for the Bayern game, and they'll be all fresh for next weekend as well. Although Bailey's carrying a knock, and he probably won't play against Munich, and he might feature in the Clasico, but he's quite doubtful. I think it's a muscle injury, that it's nothing severe. They're just monitoring it, and obviously if they can get through games at this stage without him, and then get him for the kind of 2 or 3 games, final games of the league season and the Champions League latter stages, then that's certainly what they'll look to do.
Yeah, he's a gem of a player, Isco. It does surprise me he doesn't get more games. I've watched him a number of times and thought, yeah, you should be playing more. But as you say, it could be part of El Clasico, which we're going to just preview quickly now. Barcelona, feel free to touch on them. They won 3-2 against Sociedad. All the action in the first half, and that one quite a balmy first half. And I think they're maybe slightly lucky. You might think otherwise, but to get away, some very good chance I saw for Sociedad at 3-2. But they got the win, and we got the Clasico coming up this weekend. So where is the momentum? Because a Barcelona win, which I'm sure you're all hoping for, could change everything in theory.
Yeah, it completely could. And I kind of sat there at 2-2 and thought, right, they're right back in this, because Madrid draw, Barcelona beat Sociedad, then the Clasico coming up. Kind of knocked the wind out of the sails, but they still went and beat Sociedad. The momentum is definitely with Real Madrid. They're playing probably the better football. They've got kind of the machine-like going on where they don't seem to play really well, but win. Not defending particularly well, but they're always going to score with the forward players they've got. Barcelona are at the end of a cycle. Under Luis Enrique, I think it's naturally coming to an end. I think the Juventus game, the Paris game away showed that, the Man City game away showed that, and I think in midweek against Juventus it showed that as well. They're struggling to defend, struggling to control games. Interestingly, on Saturday, it was the second time in 6 years a team's had more possession than them. And the only time I can remember that happening was away under Tata Martino. Can't remember the team. I think it was Vallecano, who did play great football under Paco Gémez. But this was at the Nou Camp against Sociedad, and that is more worrying than anything else, I think, for the supporters and people connected to the club. They're just not controlling games. And the best way that Barcelona have found to defend in recent times is to control with the ball and be aggressive without the ball, and they're not doing either. So I think there's a lot more to look at. I'd be very surprised if Barcelona went there and won. I'd be very surprised if they turn it around against Juventus. But it could be a great week for them if they go and turn it around against Juventus, which they've done before against PSG, as I know, and then they go and win the Clasico. It does put them back in the title, but you just feel, with it being at the Bernabeu, it's such a tough ask, and Madrid can get the draw, and the draw would work for Madrid. So if Madrid do go up in the game, I would probably see them look to close the game out. Neymar is suspended, as we touched on last week, due to the suspension he got. He ended up getting the additional games due to the sarcastic applause of the linesman, the referee. So he's out of the game, which is a blow for Barca. So I think the momentum is with Madrid. I hope it's a good game, because the first Clasico this season was poor and ended up with Ramos getting the equaliser 2 minutes from time, another late goal, but it wasn't the best game. I hope this weekend is a good game. I think Barcelona will revert back to the 3-4-3. They're really trying to give it a go. I don't quite understand the logic behind it at the minute, because they're just not doing what they should be doing, and Messi is appearing to do everything on his own at the minute. It's not the only person it's benefiting. Probably is probably Ivan Rakitic has probably played well in the 3-4-3. Not everybody else has kind of dipped, and it doesn't mean that, it means that Jordi Alba is not in the team, who is a really important player for them, and that was proven against Juve as well, when Mathieu was appalling and was dragged off at half-time, twice in 4 days. So I think they're ready for a change, but I have no update on on who the new manager will be, because It's changing so fast. It's interesting. The Oscar Garcia, ex-Brighton manager, was linked last week. So with every single result that goes ahead and goes on, the new manager changes as to who it's going to be. I did see a really good point by Guillaume Balaguer in the week, who said they should have announced a new manager when Enrique said he was resigning, like Bayern Munich do, because Nzui would have had the job. Now he's been looked upon that he isn't good enough for the job because he's associated to Luis Enrique. So it's interesting what's going on there, but they really are scratching around for a manager. So they've got so much going off the field. I think in some quarters they've written this season off, if I'm totally honest, at this point now. I just think the Juventus game is too big for them to turn around as well.
Yeah, interesting. So you think Barca are gone for the Champions League, and you think Real, they're playing, time of recording, they're playing in about an hour and a quarter's time against Bayern. Do you expect there to be, because I think that there'll be goals in that. I don't know if Lewandowski's back, but I have a feeling Bayern will score.
Yeah, he is. The lineup's just been announced. He's back in the team.
I have a feeling Bayern will score in the Bernabeu. I actually think they'll probably get 2, but I don't think Real Madrid won't score either. So do you think they're going to go through in that one?
Yeah, I think Madrid will go through probably 3-2, 3-1, 3-2. I definitely see Munich scoring. I just don't know if they can keep the door closed for 90 minutes at the Bernabeu, which not many teams do. And I do think Barcelona probably are out. Although if they do score within the first 2 or 3 minutes like they did against PSG, then it could be on, because if you start the game at that point, they can beat Juventus 2-0. And interesting, I do think they had chances in Turin as well. Buffon pulled a couple of great saves. Well, one great save from Iniesta and Suarez. So I think they will get chances. But again, they can't close the door at the end. So I think Barca will probably win 2 or 3-1. I think they'll go out.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd say is, as much as I love my French football, Juventus are not PSG, and I can just see, I'm sure John's nodding along, I can see Bonucci putting Suarez in the stand within 5 minutes, and it being one of those kind of games where they just kick lumps out of the opposition.
I have a sneaky suspicion that the referee might not give as many decisions to Juventus as he did in Turin.
Might be right.
in
Yes,
Barcelona. Both teams are certainly get the home advantage anyway, it's fair to say. So at least it does balance out over the 2 legs. Interestingly, Isco is starting for Madrid tonight as well. Just seeing the lineup for them. So.
After all that, yeah.
Contral with the minutes now. So.
Contral. I saw him, some of the quotes that he came out with the other day saying he was never good enough to play for Real Madrid. I was like, wow, it's quite a frank admission, but yeah, interesting. And for the Classico, I'm going to predict 4 goals and 2 red cards. There you go. That's my prediction. So from the very top to the very bottom is where we'll finish. Some very interesting footage came out this week of Tony Adams doing. I think it's called something like, is it Pistons and Shifts or something? It's a regime that he picked up from George Graham back in his Arsenal days in the 80s. I think I'm right in saying, and it was described by the Spanish. I forget his name on Sky Sports. Oh, his name has gone out of my head. Terry somebody. That's the one. Now it's very interesting. It was set to various different theme tunes. I saw "Beat It" played very nicely, but I thought the best regime, or the best one that fit the footage that we saw under the new Tony Adams regime, they did it to the offices. The famous David Brent, which was absolutely brilliant. It fit perfectly. But all jokes aside, it didn't start very well for the former England captain, did it? As Granada crashed at home 3-0 to a Celta side that was essentially bit part players. I mean, even Claudio Bovu scored, and if you've watched him at Lyon, that's quite an achievement. Celta didn't have to get out of first gear, and ultimately it was pretty patterns from Granada, but not a lot else, was it? Much the same as usual.
Yeah. Vigo rested practically the full team due to the Europa League excursions. So that before the game, I thought, well, they might have a chance. The new manager effect. Vigo not really kind of with it in terms of bringing the best players, but it just didn't work for Granada, and it was very much, as you said, the same old. You know, there was before Tottenham's taken over, they'd lost 5 out of the last 6. The 19th, they cut adrift. Did start okay, Granada, but they're at home, so you'd expect them to have a bit of a go. But then they were caught by Jose Bedu, who's on loan from Fulham, and made it 1-0. again, they were in the game always at that point. They hit the bar at 1-0, which you think if they got that, could they have got the crowd up and maybe gone on and pushed for a winner? But then Diaz hit a free kick and made it 2-0. And as you said, Bovo scored on the 76th minute and made it 3-0. It's a massive job for Tony Adams. I don't quite understand the logic of why he's taken it. Obviously, he's friends with the owner, or he's working for the owner of the club, so I understand that he's maybe been asked as a favour. I think he's on a hiding to nothing. The squad is not good enough. It's made up primarily of loan players or players that they've shared with Udinese and Watford. I think at the start of the weekend they had 11 different nationalities. I think we touched on this a few weeks ago that Granada are lacking in identity. They don't have any identity. They're just a team made up of nomadic players. And I think that's just bore out in where they're at. And I think they will go down. Whether Tony Adams is the man to bring them back, I don't know whether that's the intention that he will stay past this. I think he's got 6 games. But they need a change. I think they'll go down to Segunda and look to make the change that they need with a playing squad. I saw his press conference. He was talking a lot about kind of getting back the identity of the club and making it a bit more local for the fans, which is something that they 100% need to do, and just get some permanent players. I think it's just odd when they've just got so many loan players. It just doesn't feel like they can build any type of spirit or a team. But then that said, is Tony Adams good enough to manage in La Liga? There's question marks about that. I think, and I actually hope this doesn't happen for him. I think he might take it as a kind of a Gary Neville situation where he ends up kind of regretting it, probably not publicly, but what's the best that he could probably do at this stage? Although when Gary Neville did go to Valencia, they were in a better position than Granada are with a much better team. But there were reasons that he'd been brought in. As always, whenever a manager goes and there's a reason they've been brought in, either the team isn't playing well or it's losing football matches and they need a change. But it's such a short space of time for him to do anything. I don't think he speaks the language hugely, but that might not be an issue with so many non-Spanish players. So he might get some effect. I did look at the fixtures and there are some winnable ones in there. But I would have said before the game on Sunday that Vigo, when they're resting so many players, was a winnable game, and they got beat 3-0. There was fan demonstrations as well against the board, which doesn't help considering he's been brought in by, obviously, he's working for the owner, so they have not taken to him straight away. And I think, obviously, people have looked at his record in England and said, well, what actually has he done as a coach, as a manager? It's not as if he's been brought in with a really good track record. So I think the experiment won't particularly work. And it doesn't look great for British managers in La Liga. You look at Tony Adams now, Gary Neville, 18 months past, I think it was. And then obviously Moyes in between that as well, who did really poor. You had Kris Coleman come across, didn't do very well. So I think the only person who's come across who's British who's done okay was Ian Cathro, who was the assistant under Nuno at Valencia. And he had a really good reputation in Spain. But obviously he's at Hearts now, so it's tough. It's tough for people to break in. I think it's a different style of football. But even his signings or his trial signs of Kieran Richardson and Nigel Reo-Coker just feels bizarre. I think the whole thing just feels odd. But ultimately Granada are going to suffer, and it's a decent club, which probably a relegation will do it some good.
Mm-hmm. The Sunderland effect, if you will, or the Newcastle effect, whichever way you stand. I suppose the only other success story I can think in England, or English, I should say, was Paul Clement. But of course, he was an assistant coach, wasn't he, under Carlo at Real Madrid? So, but as you say, not the front man.
Yeah, you've had John Toshak, Venables, Robson. You've had some success. It's just not giving a great advert for British coaches when the ones who come over don't do particularly well. And do kind of comical moves in training, which then picked up online and shared the music.
It was good fun, I'll say that much. And yeah, I think Tony Adams' approach of we're going to kick some asses in training, and the Spanish media mocked that, didn't they? The next day they said, well, your asses got kicked. So it didn't really work out too well. But Yeah, I mean it's one of those. They do look a little bit doomed. And as you say, Granada were taken apart by a second string Vigo side. So yes, one of those. But nevertheless, I'm sure we'll keep across Tony Adams' watch and see which former England internationals he chooses to try and bring in next, good or otherwise, should be stressed. But that was the week that was then in La Liga. We're just going to. Do you want to just run through the other results for us, and then I can give the listeners the table?
Yeah. So the early kickoff on Saturday was Depor 2, Malaga 0. Obviously, we've touched on Gijón and Barcelona on Saturday, 3-2 wins respectively. Sunday, the early fixture was Leganés Espanyol, and that was 1-0 Espanyol. Leo Baptista scored in the 9-second minute. I actually watched that game, and Leganés went I could see what they're trying to do. They were trying to go for the win. Although a draw wouldn't have been a bad result, really, but they pushed up and got hit on the break. So there was 1 minute away from a point with none, which was really disappointing for them. Disappointing again was Valencia 0, Sevilla 0. I tipped this for the game to watch. Ended up being a 0-0, and I think that's just systematic of where Sevilla are at the minute. Although it's a decent point for them on the road, and 1 win in 7 now, and São Paulo, like I said before, will probably be leaving, going to Argentina to coach the national team. The later game on Saturday, the tea-time game was Betis 2, Eibar 0. Betis needed that to stay up. I think that's them practically safe now. And it's disappointing for Eibar because they were really pushing for that Europa League spot. And then last night there was Alaves 2, Villarreal 1, and Villarreal are in all types of trouble on the road. And they're struggling to name a bench at the minute. They're relying heavily on the youth system. Just got chronic injuries and suspension, so Villarreal have tailed off towards the end of the season. And that's basically it for the results from last week.
Good stuff. Okay, I'll just run quickly through the table, and then you can give us a game to look out for next week. I have a sneaking suspicion I know which one that will be, but still. Real Madrid top 3 points clear from Barcelona with that big game coming up, of course. Real Madrid with a game in hand as well, don't forget. Atletico Madrid fresh ahead of their trip to Leicester tonight at time of recording, 65 points in third. Sevilla fourth, Villarreal fifth, Athletic Bilbao, we said, in sixth, with Sociedad, Eibar, Espanyol and Vigo making up the top 10. Alaves sit in 11th with Valencia, 12th Las Palmas, 13th Betis, 14th Malaga, 15th. And you've got Deportivo La Coruña still in danger at 31 points and 16th. Leganés 27 points and 17th with a 5-point gap, 22 points to Gijón and 20 points Granada 19th, and Osasuna we know doomed, 17 points and bottom. I presume that the Clásico is indeed the game of the week for you next week. I presume. Is there any others that catch your eye?
Yeah, the Clásico is the one that we're watching. There's not a great deal of standout fixtures. I think one at the bottom would be Osasuna Gijón, which is on Saturday at 5:30, but I think both are practically doomed. And Espanyol Atletico Madrid on Saturday night at 7:45 English time is a decent game as well, because Espanyol are kind of on the up, and I think part of a bigger project there for Espanyol, so that'll be a decent watch. But obviously, all eyes will be on the Bernabeu at 7:45 on Sunday night.
Good stuff. And you think Atletico probably will do enough at Leicester tonight as well, with Champions League in mind?
Yeah, I just think they'll be too streetwise, and I don't think they'll let themselves be opened up by Leicester. I think they'll look to sit in and soak it up early, and then even if they do concede, I still think they'll look to get on the break. And we know how devastating they can be with Griezmann and Carrasco and Saúl and Negreira. So I think Atletico should have enough. And I do actually fancy them to win it. Just need to avoid Real Madrid. But I do.
Can almost predict it, can't you? Real Madrid, Atletico at some point if they get through. So we shall see. We'll of course be across that in the satchel later on this week, all being well. So look out for that. Right, that's another week for Spain looked at then. I know we got some questions later on, so we will be back to you. Got one from our very own Josh and a couple from Tom as well. So we'll be back to you later on. But we're off to Germany next. This is the part where John and I try to cover for Drew in our best possible way. At least we've watched some games this week as we go to the Bundesliga. John, let's start with the game that you watched, which listeners won't be surprised to know was the Hoffenheim Gladbach game. You picked quite a good one to watch, didn't you? 8 goals. Gladbach proving once again they can't actually defend, but they did score a few. But yeah, 5-3 defeat to Hoffenheim, whose season just goes on and on.
Thoroughly deserves win for Hoffenheim, to be honest. The 3 goals was actually a little bit generous. One of the Gladbach goals shouldn't have stood, but they just started the better team. They have been all season. I think this now doesn't quite guarantee them top 4, but they're not far off it now, guaranteeing their Champions League spot. But Salai with the first 2 goals. The second in particular, really, really nice little flick. Rudy got to the byline and just fired it in, and he did the back heel no-look flick into the goal, which is really nice. First one just from a free kick, and yeah, just exposed some of the weaknesses that Gladbach have had this season from set pieces. We've looked a bit shaky. Vestergaard again coming up with a goal. Bit of a scrappy one, but he seems to be making a habit of this, which is nice. The goal that shouldn't have stood was actually from Lars Stindl. I think it was it Baumann? Baumann in goal for Hoffenheim. Made a bit of a pig's ear of trying to play it out from the back, and basically just booted it towards Hoffmann in his own area. Hoffmann actually handled the ball and it fell to De Hood, who just passed it in for Stindl for an easy tap-in. So it should have been a free kick, but Baumann playing a little bit risky there. But that's the way Nagelsmann likes to play, playing it out from the back and just playing some nice football. But it didn't faze them. They went back in front again. They're in by with a free kick, and it's one of those where no one actually gets a touch on it, and it's just been put in a good area. The keeper doesn't know whether to come or not. There's players running in. No one makes contact, and it just drifts into the far corner. The pick of the punch was from Ut. I think that's how you say his surname anyway. I don't want to get that wrong. But
yes,
just,
bang on, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant hit. Just turned his man, little drag, and then absolutely rifled it into the top corner. De Hood pulled another one back with a nice finish, just a bit of a scramble in the box. It fell to him on the edge and he blasted it in. I think that's his third goal in the last 3 games, actually. And then right at the end, Darren Bay scored again. It was Andrej Kamaric, who had a really, really good game. Smacked one off the crossbar in the first half. He had a shot saved and then had the sort of awareness to get himself back on his feet and look up and see Darren Bay running at the back post and just flicked it in that direction for an easy tap-in. So, really good result for Hoffenheim. Nagelsmann's stock continues to raise. I hope for them that he stays there, and continues his development as a manager and continues improving the club, because it's amazing what they've done considering where they were last season. Gladbach, it was disappointing, but we were well beaten. The 3 goals, I think, is a little bit generous for us. I thought Hoffenheim were the much better side. But again, it was just, get through the game, get through the season and reassess again in the summer. I'll be interested to see how many of those Hoffenheim players leave, because obviously Nicolas Silva's already set to join Bayern Munich, isn't he, in the summer?
And Sebastian Rudy as well.
Oh, yes, yeah. So I'll be interested to see if any other players get picked up, because none of them are big superstars or sort of flair players, but they just seem to work very well together. They've kind of got a Leicester feel about them, not in this way they play, but in they're very hard working, all work for each other, and they just seem to work together as a unit. And he's kind of got them, like Joel was talking about, they've got an identity and seem to really appreciate playing for each other and doing things for each other. So I'm not sure how well they'll do individually outside of that Hoffenheim team. But really good result for them, and keeps them just above Dortmund in the table.
Yes, indeed it does, yes. And Dortmund getting a 3-1 victory at home to Frankfurt, wasn't it, of course, on the Saturday game. Very, very good goal from Papadopoulos in that one, wasn't it? He didn't half hit that one. That was quite a ripper.
I've never seen it before. Apparently, Thomas Tuchel said that when he ran through, because he ran with the ball, got half of the pitch, and took it round 2 players, and he said he was expecting either a goal kick or a throw-in from the resulting shot. He certainly wasn't expecting it in the top corner. Michael Royce back in the team from injury with a goal as usual. No doubt he'll be out again next week, but whenever he comes back, he always scores. And Aubameyang with yet another finish. Adding some money to his fee in the summer for whatever club comes in for him, no doubt.
Yeah, interested to see that apparently Alexandre Lacazette is the favourite to replace Aubameyang if he indeed moves this summer. So that's two clubs that Lacazette is definitely going to sign for now in in Atletico Madrid and Dortmund. But that would be a very good fit, I think. As much as it crushes me to say it. Marco Fabian with the reply for Frankfurt in that game. Mainz got a 1-0 victory over Hertha BSC. Jonathan Brooks scoring in his own net. Big result that for Mainz. We'll explain why in a moment. Wolfsburg with another impressive victory. Sutner own goal, Yunus Mali, Janzem's favourite, and Mario Gomez yet again 3-0 over Ingolstadt, who would appear are in quite a lot of difficulty moving forwards. Augsburg with a 2-1 victory, big win for them as well over Cologne. Hinteregger and Paul Verhey with the penalty goal back from Philip Mack's own goal for Cologne. Kai Jachul was sent off, as was Finn Bogerson, slightly unfortunately, has to be said, late on. And Leipzig, we should briefly touch on this. They got a 4-0 victory, goals from Poulsen, Timo Werner, Naby Keita and Diego Dema with the goals there. 4-0 victory over Freiburg. Sad times. And that officially secures them Champions League football. We got a brilliant tweet actually from Calvin Boombox, where he's got a meme of Mike Tyson. It said Jesus Christ when it's when it says simply founded 2009, promoted 2010, promoted 2013, promoted 2014, promoted 2016, Champions League qualification 2017, making history. It's pretty impressive. Whether you like them or you don't, you can't sniff at that, can you? Champions League, first season up. It's amazing what they've done there.
Yeah, it's guaranteed at least a preliminary place, most likely at least a group place, you would think. I can't see Hoffenheim and Dortmund both overtaking them now, but it's an even achievement, but it's also given them a headache now because obviously with RB Salzburg, you can't have one company or identity, if you like, owning two different clubs in the same competition. So there's lots of legal things going on at the moment, trying to change the ownership and make sure they comply with all the UEFA regulations, because obviously there is a possibility that they could face each other. Obviously it's long odds, but it is a possibility, and then obviously that comes with a conflict of interests and possible match fixing allegations and all these kind of things. So it's something they've got to work through. Maybe they didn't think they were going to get it so soon, but they're certainly pushing through to get all that sorted now. If it's not done in time, I wouldn't worry too much because, let's be honest, UEFA are a little bit slow at penalising anyone for doing something wrong. And when they do, it's not really the harshest punishment ever. So, I wouldn't worry too much if I was RB Leipzig. But, yeah, really, really impressive achievement for them, for the most beloved team in Germany.
Yeah, indeed. I've got a sneaking suspicion that they'll find a way to incorporate the two clubs somehow or other, funny enough. But amazing achievement. And as I say, whether you like them or you hate them, and I know Drew's not a particular fan of them as a club, but is a huge admirer of what they've done. If you've got any other questions on them, please do give Drew a shout. But yes, very, very good achievement for them. A couple of other games we're going to look at: Leverkusen 0, Bayern Munich 0. I sat through this. It was quite painful. It was just one of those games where Leverkusen, you could see they were trying to make an impression on the game. They were doing all they could to try and get something out of it, but ultimately that ended when Tim Jedvaj was sent off with half an hour to go. So to get a 0 against Bayern Munich with 10 men is pretty good achievement. But once again, Bayern without Lewandowski just looked that little bit not quite right. It has to be said, Philipp Lahm missed an excellent chance late on, which could have got the points, but nevertheless a 0-0.
Few rotations in the team there. I think Leverkusen got a 0 last season as well against Munich at home, so maybe got a little bit of previous there. But yeah, I think this was kind of we're thinking about Real Madrid. We don't really care about Leverkusen kind of game. Ancelotti's mind was definitely on that, and it's funny now that how the press has all of a sudden got on his back again. After the start of the season where they were very negative of him, and then they went, oh, actually, no, he's a genius. He's waited and got Bayern Munich to peak at exactly the right time. After the first leg against Madrid, there was lots of criticism of the going down to 10 men. You can still defend that and keep your shape, and they just didn't, and Madrid really outplayed them. And a lot of criticism of taking Xabi Alonso off. You didn't really have someone to control the game. So Pressure is on Carlo.
Yes, particularly ahead of that game, of course, with Real Madrid, because if it goes really well, once again he'll be a genius. If it goes horribly badly, then could he be out of a job? There's room for you in London, Carlo. We'll take you. It's fine. But yes, and only other result I just wanted to pick up on. I suppose we should give the other result. Darmstadt beat Schalke 2-1 on the Sunday. But the other game I wanted to look at was Werder Bremen beating Hamburg by 2-1. Big result this for Werder Bremen, who are just having a really lovely time of it all of a sudden. Max Kruse and the substitute Kainz coming off the bench to get the winner. All that after Gregoritsch playing as an unorthodox centre forward for Hamburg had put them in front after just 6 minutes. Werder Bremen kind of proving that sometimes form isn't everything, and sometimes you can turn things around. And boy, have they turned things around! I think that's 4 victories in 5, has catapulted them up to 8. To think that just a few short weeks ago we thought they would be in the shake-up for relegation, but it's a result.
They are the most informed team in the Bundesliga now after
they are.
Draw. Yeah.
One of the most informed teams in Europe, which is just amazing what the transformation that has come about in that side. But I think it's a result that pulls Hamburg back into the relegation shake-up, though. All of a sudden they're looking a little bit dicey. Just before we give the table, which of those clubs do you think? I mean, Darmstadt we know are doomed. They're 10 points adrift and bottom and gone. But Ingolstadt,
they mathematically can still get out of it after their win.
They're doomed. You know they're doomed, John. There's only Pescara and Palermo are worse off. I think it's safe to say that they're fairly likely to go. They did win this weekend, of course, but I still don't think it's going to be enough. Minus 36 goal difference. Wow. You've got Ingolstadt above them in the official other relegation spot, 28 points. They're 4 points behind Augsburg, who have now dropped into the relegation playoff spot, with Mainz, same points, just above them in 15th, 32 points. And then you've got Hamburg on 33, Wolfsburg on 33, in 13th or 14th and 13th respectively. Then you've got a gap to Leverkusen 36, Schalke 37, Eintracht Frankfurt 38, Gladbach 39, Werder Bremen 39. Is it Wolfsburg down for you? Or, I mean, Leverkusen are falling like a stone themselves. Surely can't drop that low. So is it between those bottom, 5 or 6 clubs?
Yeah, I can't see Leverkusen just because they've got enough good players that they can get themselves out of it. I don't know everyone's running, to be fair. So, I mean, there's a chance. But I think Wolfsburg, because, they've kind of turned a corner a little bit. Yeah, all right. The 3-0 win was maybe a little bit flattering in their performance, but they're doing enough at the moment. So I actually think it's probably Hamburg down. Augsburg obviously got a good result, and they needed that, and it was against a decent team as well in Cologne, who have had a really good season. So I don't know. I think it's a toss-up for me actually between Hamburg and Mainz. I think Augsburg will just do enough to pull themselves out of it at the last minute.
Yeah, looking at the fixtures next week, it's a very big one. Hamburg against Darmstadt. So you think Hamburg have got to win that, really, and to put themselves a bit of a gap. Ingolstadt face Werder Bremen. So obviously with Bremen's form, if Ingolstadt don't win that, then that could be problems for them. Augsburg are away at Eintracht Frankfurt, which is no easy task. And Mainz are away at Bayern. You can't really seem getting much out of that, can you? Freiburg hosting Leverkusen on the Sunday. And so, I mean, it is all in the shuffle. It is all close. Darmstadt play Freiburg soon. Just looking at the fixtures ahead of time. I think, like you say, it's Hamburg are probably the ones to keep an eye on, just because we know what they've been through previously. Augsburg against Hamburg, by the way, Sunday the 30th of April. That's got massive game in big flashing lights written all over it. So, it'd be interesting to see how the teams progress form-wise, but
there's still a slim chance for Ingolstadt. They're only 4 points off getting themselves out of there, so they've got a chance.
Don't listen to him, boys and girls. They're gone. We all know they're gone. John's always well, actually, no. You're usually quite negative about our club that we support. So
it's only about Arsenal.
Yeah, I was going to say. So everybody else is on a roll. but Arsenal are not. So, yeah, I'm going to put my head on the block and say Darmstadt gone. So if I'm proved wrong, I will relinquish my podcasting duties. Just to run through the rest of the table, Bayern Munich top. They are 8 points clear of Leipzig. Same games played. I think it's safe to say Bayern will win the league. Leipzig, as we said, qualified in the Champions League. Hoffenheim still looking likely to be there. 54 points. Their run goes on. Dortmund closing the gap. 53 points in fourth with a 10-point gap to Hertha in fifth. Freiburg 6th. Cologne 7th. Werder Bremen we mentioned in 8th. And then Gladbach and Eintracht Frankfurt 9th and 10th. And we mentioned the bottom end of the table. Is there a game that piques your interest next week, John? Gladbach Dortmund, Schalke Leipzig. They're the two that jump out at me.
Yeah, Gladbach Dortmund will be the one I'll be paying most attention to, obviously, the John Drew derby. But also Friday night, I think Cologne against Hoffenheim should be a decent game as well. That's the 7:30 on Friday.
Yeah, and for reasons that we've just kind of mentioned, the Freiburg-Leverkusen game, if Freiburg win that and results go against Leverkusen, that could be a really awkward weekend for Leverkusen. So, yes, be interested to see how Bayern do if they go out in the Champions League as well, but I think they'll beat Mainz. So, there we go. Okay, as usual, if you've got questions on the Bundesliga, I mean, you can ask me and John if you like. We'll do our best. Or you could ask Joel. That'd be funny because Joel will go, I don't know. Well, I don't know. You might not, Joel. Maybe you would know the answers. But if you want a definite answer to your German questions, Drew's probably your man at AFC at AFC BVB 1410 on Twitter. Why does he have to have such a long bloody Twitter handle? My God, sort it out, Drew. But yes, give Drew a shout. I'm sure he will do his best to answer those questions. Right. Very briefly, John, Dortmund or Monaco for you?
I think Monaco. I'm still. I feel bad for Dortmund because of everything that happened previous to the game, and I don't think the game should have been played the next day. To be honest, I don't know how they would have got round it and what they should have done in its place. That's for other people to decide. But I just think that the 3 goals they've got a chance. Dortmund. Maybe they can use the sort of horrible incidents before the game as a sort of inspiration.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think, well, obviously I'm going to lean towards Monaco, but yeah, I do think Dortmund still have a chance. And Real Madrid, are we assuming that they do the job against Bayern, like Joel said?
Yeah, I think Bayern will get a goal, especially with Lewandowski back in the team. He was at Dortmund, wasn't he, when he scored the 4 goals against Madrid? So he's got some previous, but I just think this Madrid team are a lot more pragmatic now than they used to be. Under Zidane, and like with the players like Casemiro and Carvajal at right back, and I just think they're a bit more sound at the back and can see games out. So maybe a score draw or Madrid just edge it, like a 2-1, something like that. But yeah, I think Bayern shot themselves in the foot a little bit in their first leg too much.
Yeah, poor old Arturo Vidal and his penalties as well. And Schalke have got Ajax, I should mention the Europa League. Obviously, you mentioned Celta Vigo.
Yeah,
I think so.
They absolutely flattered them.
They did, didn't they? Yeah, we got from the Spanish side, as Joel mentioned, we got Celta Vigo in action in that one, and the only German team is Schalke left. And as you said, I think it's safe to say Ajax are probably going to go through in that one. They hold a 2-0 lead from the first leg, so Schalke will need to score early to have any chance in that one. But you never know. But I think Ajax will probably go through that one. Right, okay, that's the German divisions done for another week, and we're going to head off to Italy next, where John can put his Italian hat on and talk Chinese. What are we on about, you wonder? Well, let's find out. It's this week's Serie A. Right, John, I haven't gone insane. I don't think. Anyway, the reason I mentioned China and the Chinese market is that we had a Milan derby at 11:30 on a Saturday. I mean, it was lovely. I could have a nice lay-in on my Easter break from work, and then I could watch a Milan derby. And it was a really good derby. And after Milan threw it away in the first derby of the season, Inter did their best throwaway act in this game. 2-0 up, 2-2, last kick of the game, 97th minute leveller as a result of TV replays. Good game, but as we say, played early due to Chinese interests. Milan's takeover finally done, and of course Inter heavily backed by Chinese as well.
Yeah, the first all-Chinese Milan derby. The 2-year deal saga kind of thing with Berlusconi's finally over. He's handed over the club. The board all resigned their positions. The new guys came in. They're all there at the stadium for the game. As you say, being Easter, all games were played on Saturday in Italy, and the Milan game got moved to the early kickoff for the Chinese market. They want to promote it obviously as much as they can over there. And it was a very good game if you're a neutral. If you're an Inter fan, it was miserable. It felt like a loss. It was a crazy game. Typical derby, very end-to-end. There were errors from both teams. Lots of chances. Handanovic and Donnarumma both made some really, really good saves. I was really impressed by Deulofeu for Milan. He's been superb since he's been there. I hope for Milan's sake he stays because he's really been offering them something. He was causing D'Ambrosio and Medel serious problems down that left-hand side, running them ragged. He could have scored 2 or 3 in the first 5 minutes, but it was actually Inter who took the lead, and Gagliardini with a really, really nice ball, a bit of direct football for once from Inter, to Candreva, who chipped it over Donnarumma. Good finish. He loves scoring in derbies. He scored in the derby previous in the season. He used to score all the time in the Rome derby between Roma and Lazio. And then it looked quite comfy. Inter sort of gained confidence in the game. Perisic was being brought more into it. It was really all about the wingers a lot in this because the midfield were just Kondogbia, Gagliardini, Kuchka and Matty Fernandes were just kicking lumps out of each other in the middle of the park. So everything was out wide. And the second goal was Perisic and Icardi, probably Inter's 2 best players this season. Just a lovely little chest down for Perisic, who flicked it on, full flow run, squared it for Icardi. Believe it or not, that's his first goal in the Milan derby, first goal against AC Milan in 9 attempts for Inter, which is ridiculous really when you consider his goal scoring record, but it wasn't good enough. Lots of criticism came for Pioli after this game because he made some substitutions. He took off João Mario, who was probably having one of his better games of the season. He done some really nice things in the game, and he brought on Jesse Murillo, went to 3 at the back, and kind of invited Milan onto Inter. And it was an odd decision because I thought when we were 2-0 up, we looked like maybe we could have gone and got a third, but it let Milan back into the game, and it was really late on, basically last 15-20 minutes. It was all Milan just pressuring Inter. Alessio Romagnoli, he got his first goal in the Milan derby as well. Very good run and a crossing from Suso, who had an excellent game on the right-hand side. And then, as you say, Inter sort of fell prey to their own problems of time wasting and delaying free kicks and goal kicks and things like that, trying to run the clock down. And Zapata, right at the end of the game, 97th minute, popped up, ball hits the post, and then looks like it's been cleared off the line by Medel. Then there's lots of confusion. The Milan players all screaming, fans going mad, obviously in the stadium. Inter all cheering for the final whistle, and the ref looks to his watch, and goal line technology saves Milan, gets them a point. So yeah, great start for the new owners. Really bad for Inter. Obviously, it was a big 2 points to lose because it keeps Milan above them in the table and reduces their chances of getting into Europe next season. And it doesn't help Pioli either. Last couple of results haven't really gone for him. He's had a really good season, but a couple of times some of his tactical decisions, whilst they may have been the correct one, I think he hasn't looked at necessarily the character and the kind of tendencies certain players have in this Inter team and the squad. He had Biabiani on the pitch late on, which is fine if you're going to hit the ball long into the corners and tell him to run in there and just hold the ball up, but instead of doing that, he gets the ball and runs and tries to score a goal when it's 2-1 and there's 2-3 minutes left on the clock. Certain players in that squad aren't intelligent enough to play at that level, I don't think. So that would be the one question mark against him, and I think if he doesn't get into Europe, which is kind of the bare minimum, then he'll probably be out of the job. Another big tick for Montella though, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Milan now, because obviously there was so much success under Berlusconi, 27 trophies I think in like 30 years, back-to-back European Cups. They were the last team to do that. So the new owner's got a lot to live up to. They obviously spent a lot of money paying the default payments for not getting the deal done through in time, and they've had to get a bridge loan as well, which is, I think it's something like 300 odd million, and it's an interest rate of something like 11%, and they've got 18 months to pay it back, which is a huge amount of money. And when they're talking about the investment they're going to make in the summer with the players, I'm a little bit confused as to how they're going to be able to pay that loan off and pay all the players as well. But we'll see what happens with that. So exciting times for both Milan clubs coming in the summer. They'll both, I don't doubt that they'll both spend big, but I think Inter are probably better positioned financially, at least for the early couple of years.
Agreed. There's so much rebuilding needs to be done. As you say, there's a couple of standout performances. Gagliardini was very good first half and then faded. I thought Perisic was the same. He's arguably the biggest player for Inter to hold on to this summer, I think. So he's been magnificent recently. And like you say, Deulofeu was superb for Milan, and they just kept going, just kept fighting. I actually thought Nagatomo was quite good for Inter, given that he's not played like all season pretty much, and thought he did quite a good job at left back. But ultimately, like you say, Inter didn't, or they kind of threw it away, threw the tactics away, and threw the game away. So that was disappointing as a Nerazzurri fan, but nevertheless, Inter with another season out of Europe, maybe. And same could be said for Fiorentina, potentially, who they lost to the one team that can't win a game ever under any circumstances, Empoli. This is a derby, I think I'm right in saying, and Empoli won it last kick of the game away from home as well. Yeah,
the Tuscany derby. It's the first time they have won it since 1997. So it's a huge result.
10 years.
They won 2-1.
20 years.
Yeah,
sorry.
The winning goal was also scored by an ex-Fiorentina captain, Pasquale. So,
ouch.
Just the extra rubbing. It was a really good game. Again, another very good derby game. Good chances. Fiorentina had the better of them. Chiesa, Crescentello, Bernardeschi, Kalinic. Ilicic had a brilliant free kick that I think hit the post. TM with the most of the chances for Empoli. They actually took the lead, a bit of a goalkeeping error from Tatarusanu. He saved the shot and El Kaduri followed up for an easy tap-in. Crescentello with the equaliser. And then, as I say, Pasquale, last kick of the game, penalty to win the game. Huge result for them because, as you say, we've been saying for a couple of weeks, they've been on a huge slide, and there's, Crotone had got some results, and we thought maybe Palermo might be able to get themselves out of it and maybe just jump above them and drag Empoli into it. So it's huge for them. The most interesting thing about this game, though, is that all three goals shouldn't have stood. El Kaduri, the build-up to the goal, he's offside. Christian Teo, the build-up, Boya Vallejo, who put the ball in for him, he was clearly offside as well. These aren't close calls either. These are 2-3 yards, quite obvious mistakes. And the penalty wasn't a penalty. There was absolutely no contact on the player at all. It was a ridiculous dive. So none of the goals should have stood. So both managers were, slightly annoyed with the referee at half-time and at full-time as well. But huge result for Empoli. They really, really needed this. It gives them a little bit of breathing room, but I just think when it's a derby, anything can happen. And obviously, in really poor decisions from the referee and linesman in this game, they're still going to have to be very, very careful in the last few fixtures because Crotone, of all the teams down at the bottom, are the ones who are getting some results at least to try and claw themselves back out of it.
It was one of those results I don't think anyone really saw coming, but there it was. Very good win that for Empoli, and as you say, it just makes them that little bit more secure after the wretched run of form they've been on of late. So good result for them, and a derby to boot. It's almost the sort of game you need when you're on a terrible run of form, ironically. And the other result as well from the weekend we wanted to touch on was Juve just doing what Juve do best. 2-0 victory over Pescara. A little bit about the game, but more about a current injured star who's signing a new contract, or has signed for a new contract, we believe.
Comfortable win, 2-0 away against Pescara. Il Pepito getting both goals. Higuain, who obviously didn't get the goals in the Barcelona game, but most of it made from Cuadrado and Mandzukic. Both goals are easy tap-ins for him. Dybala went off injured in this game. He was a doubt, but I've just seen some reports now. It looks like it's going to be the exact same lineup as the first leg for the Barca game, so he should be fit for that. And the thing that Juve fans will be even more excited about is the fact he has signed a new contract. He's now been put on the same wages as Gonzalo Higuain, so he's the joint highest earner at the club. It's a contract till 2022. And Juve really feel like this is very different to the way they had Paul Pogba, and the fact that they signed into a new contract but expected him to go so they could get big money. They think Dybala actually does want to stay. All his statements say that way. He's very happy there. And I think it's the mentality of the club has changed now. They're almost at the point where they're established as one of the top 4 sides in Europe. They're not quite a Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, but they're probably the next down, and kind of in a tier of their own. Maybe PSG, if they start getting better results in Europe, agree put in there, and I suppose Atletico Madrid. But it just shows a mark of the club and how Juve, as usual, are the forward thinkers in Serie A, whether it be the stadium, the rebrand for the badge that many people mocked, but it's all designed to get themselves to the next level and to keep investing, reinventing the club, and keep them at the highest, keep them at the top table, so to speak. So keeping hold of Dybala is going to be huge for them. And honestly, I think it's the best place for him. When you get a player of that kind of talent, you just want to see him play week in, week out, develop, and not be moved about from club to club and be a big superstar signing from this club and then to the next one. So a bit like Neymar's gone to Barca and he's got great players around him and could sort of come into the league and develop and then show what he was all about and do it on the European stage. Dybala's getting his chance now. I know there's a few Barca fans who certainly want him in their side. Maybe in a few years' time, I can see it happening. But for now, he's going to be staying there. As for Pescara, Zdeněk Zeman, the coach there, as he came in earlier in the season, made a great quote. He said, "We're clearly better than Barcelona because we only lost 2-0."
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, which I thought was very funny, very typical Zeman.
Yeah, as simple as that, isn't it? But good result that for Juventus, nevertheless. Even against the lesser side, as you say, sets them up rather well for the game with Juve, which
afforded rotation and stuff for most of the players. Like the back line was basically completely different, and the goalkeeper he got to rest the entire back 5. So
not bad, is it? Yeah. I still think they're going to be one of the favourites to win that Champions League. We shall see what transpires. Just before we get the other results, and I'll read the table, I just want to ask Joel. Joel, we touched on Gerard Deulofeu, who's Barcelona have essentially announced, I think they announced publicly, didn't they, that they will be exercising their buyback option. Does he get into Barca's current squad, particularly if they shift a few, or is it just purely for monetary gain to flog him on now his career's gone back on track again?
Both, I think. I think he came... He didn't fit in with Luis Enrique instantly. And Luis Enrique sent him home from a pre-season camp in England, interestingly, in about a week into the job, and then loaned him straight out. So Luis Enrique claimed he had the talent but not the attitude. Obviously, with Enrique going, the sporting director has taken the decision to bring him back. Obviously, in line with a new coach, they will look at him and see if he can fit in. Or if not, and if that isn't the case, then they'll look to sell him on for probably a profit. It's 12 million euros they're going to exercise it for, which is what they agreed. He has the talent, and I think if they do try and play with a bit more width next season, he could probably fill on the right-hand side. I did read somewhere that Messi's not happy with it for whatever reason, whether that's because of his attitude or because he believes he isn't good enough and they need better than that. But they will definitely bring him back. Whether he stays or not is another question. It just depends on the coach who comes in, if he rates him.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in the summer. Nevertheless, they'll get some money for him.
I'd expect that if Barca didn't want to keep him, then Milan would certainly exercise the right to try and sign him back, for an increased fee, because he's gone down really well there.
He's an enigma, isn't he? Sometimes he looks like a well-being, other times you just never know what you're going to get. So, yes, certainly some money in it for somebody, one way or the other. What were the other results from the week then, John?
Yeah, Roma suffered in their chase for Juve. They drew 1-1 at home to Atalanta. Kurtic on the score sheet again for Atalanta. Edin Dzeko with his 25th league goal of the season. Ridiculous season he's having. Palermo managed to get themselves a point, but it's not really going to help them. 0-0 against Bologna. Paul Gar sent off in that. Calgary, all a little bit too late. Got a 4-0 win at home against the Flying Donkeys. João Pedro with 2 there. Borriello on the score sheet as well. Torino got a 1-1. Joe Hart, look away now. Terrible clanger for the goal that Crotone scored at the end there from Nwanku. To be fair, probably what Crotone deserved, because Belotti won a very dubious penalty, which he did step up and score this time though, so that is one thing. Genoa, Lazio played out a 2-2. Ivan Juric back in charge there at Genoa after Mandolini had left. Simeone back on the score sheet, hadn't scored for a while, and then Goran Pandev as well, ex-Lazio player, but late strike from Luis Alberto, really good finish. Gave Lazio the draw there. Sassuolo finally ended their 5-game without a win at home streak, beating Sampdoria 2-1. My favourite Schick on the score sheet for Sampdoria, that's Cherby and Regusu with the goals for Sassuolo. And Napoli faced Udinese, who'd been on a 5-game winning streak. It took until the second half to break them down, but of course they did. Dries Mertens first on the score sheet, Alan as well, former Udinese player, and then Callejon with the 3rd goal.
Happy days, happy days. So whilst you dig out a game for us, I shall just give our listeners the table. So as we know, Juventus are top of the tree, I think it's fair to say. Everyone expects them to win the league. Well, I think we... are we going to crown them champions? I think we probably should, shouldn't we, at this stage? But they are top with 80 points, 8 points clear of Roma. Same games played. Roma in second, of course. With Napoli in third. Still not cut and dry between those two. Have we got another Rome derby? We haven't, have we? This season? No. That's it. So depends on how the form goes for those two. Lazio a distant 4th, 9 points adrift. Atalanta, Milan, and Inter make up the top 7. Fiorentina down in 8th, with Torino 9th, and Joe Hart and all. And 10th, Sampdoria, with Udinese 11th, Cagliari 12th, Chiesa 13th on a horrible run, 4 straight defeats. Bologna 14th, and then you've got a clutch of sides. Sassuolo probably I'll say 15th on 35 points, and you've got Genoa. 30 points, 26 points for Empoli, 5-point gap to Crotone, who are still just about alive on 21 points. Palermo and Pescara. Are you willing to concede that they've gone, or are you going to give them a chance as well?
Pescara definitely gone. Palermo, yeah.
They're gone, John.
Yeah,
Come on. They're gone. Thank you. Right, there we go. We got there in the end, listeners. So what game are you going to look at for next week?
It's a tough. There isn't a huge standout game, but I'm going to go for Fiorentina hosting Inter on Saturday night. I know, biased. That's the 7:45 game. It's the last chance for either of these teams to have a push for possibly Europa League. Neither team can afford a draw. They've really got to go for a win in this, so that will be it. I was actually looking a week ahead, but the week after that is Atalanta hosting Juventus, which will be probably the last chance for anyone to put a dent in their title challenge. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think it will be probably, as you say, the only real hurdle left. I suppose the Champions League. They've got that, and they've got to play Roma after, and that's away as well. So I suppose the Champions League is the only thing that could derail them slightly, but I still think they'll have enough to win the league. So, quietly confident on that one. Okay, that's all then for Italy. We're going to finish up with little old France. I always go last, well, most times anyway, but quite a lot to talk about, so we will waste no time. It's this week's Ligue 1. Right, Liga this week. I'm sure everyone knows what we're going to talk about, but we'll leave that till last because it's not particularly pleasant. But we'll start off. PSG are actually playing right now, but they also played earlier against Angers away. Comfortable 2-0 win. That man Di Maria.
Yes, indeed. I will come on to the game tonight because it's just finished and it was utterly mental the last 20 minutes. So I'll come on to that in a second. But yes, PSG, they did win 2-0 against Angers. Di Maria is a player reborn, to be honest. He started the season poor, to be perfectly fair. Showed signs of why Real Madrid were okay letting him go in the end, I think it's fair to say. He just tailed off. But funnily enough, since Julian Draxler and Gonzalo Guedes were signed, all of a sudden he realised his place might be under threat and he started playing again. The ability Di Maria has is never in question. It's whether he can motivate himself to be at his top level all the time. And he certainly did in this game. Angers were decent for long spells, but the goal in the 28th minute kind of opened the game up. Delicious free kick, and 84th minute, Di Maria got his second and tied the game up just as Angers again were pushing for the equaliser. It was a very, very good overall team performance for PSG because it's the sort of fixture you look at and you think could easily come off the rails, but they got the victory, and I say we'll come back to their game tonight, but that put them in a commanding position, and it was even more commanding when we talk about the next game, which I'm sure you can segue us into.
The Monaco game against Dijon. Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, sorry.
Indeed.
I'm just catching up here, getting messages and phone calls and all sorts at the same time.
It's all happening.
Yes, Monaco, who obviously were leading the table. PSG trying to put them under pressure. They won out their last game. It wasn't the most convincing result, I didn't think. And they faced Dijon team who were in poor form. But Dijon actually took the lead and looked like they might spring a little surprise.
Yeah, they did. Monaco, for the first time this season, they looked a little bit edgy, and they conceded to Varro's very close range effort after Subasic. He's a goalkeeper that divides opinion. Some people look at him and go, yeah, he's absolutely world class. Other people look at him and go, yeah, he's got a rick in him, and he had a rick in him tonight, or in this game, I should say. He failed to hold a shot that was driven goalwards, and Varro pounced to put Dijon in front. It was right before half time. I think Monaco went in a bit stunned. But Falcao, who's having a lovely old renaissance of his career, he's all of a sudden back in scoring form. He's been injured recently, but he stepped up and he became the hero. And it's a real gritty, when teams go for a championship and you think, yeah, can they dig out results when they're not playing well? And they sure did. Navadira got the opening goal, but it was all about Falcao. Free kick, 25 yards, smashing the underside of the crossbar, and Dira was there to tap in from a yard out. She got them level on 69 minutes, and then Falcao himself, opposite corner this time, same free kick, same distance, probably a bit further out actually in truth, but I don't know if you've seen this, but it's an absolutely...
Oh, yes. Both of the free kicks were really, really good.
So good, yeah. It's a delightful swish of the peg and into the back of the net. It went, really was well executed, and that was with just 9 minutes to play. Dijon did have a late chance to level it, but didn't get anything from the game. They'll feel a bit disappointed actually because their performance alone merited more than they got from it. But yeah, fabulous from Falcao, and if they can keep him scoring, I think they'll probably have enough to see out this title race. But as I say, PSG played tonight. I don't know if you've seen anything of this game, but they were away at Metz. They came out winners, but my goodness me, it wasn't. It was closer than it should have been. They were 2-0 up and seemingly cruising. Edinson Cavani after 33 minutes, and just 3 minutes later, Blaise Matuidi getting the second, both from Maxwell assists. And at that stage, it was very comfortable. Metz were completely out of their depth. PSG dominating possession, dominating chances. 2-0 at the half-time break, and it was all happy days. But then Jan Jouffre, who's a player I still miss dearly at Lorient, wonderful player, got them kind of back into it with 12 minutes to play, 78th minute, and then the unthinkable. Czech Diabate, who's been a really good signing, pops up 88 minutes. It's 2-2, which was incredible in itself, and Unai Emery's face was an absolute picture as that equalising goal went in. But then, you just really thought it could get any more dramatic. Metz very, very nearly, and I mean coat of paint, nearly won it. Jan Jouffre again got a free kick, edge of the box, 25 yards out, underside of the crossbar. It was so close to bouncing off the bar and in, and amazingly was cleared away. And wouldn't you know it, sign of champions. I think Joel put in our chat box. It was very Real Madrid-esque. Down the other end they went. In came the cross, and Blaise Matuidi, that man again, got the winner from a Javier Pastore cross in the 93rd minute. Mets absolutely on their knees, deflated. So it's a performance of champions. Will PSG make its champions? Open to debate. They've now played obviously a game more, but that does put the pressure on Monaco. It should be stress level on points now. Monaco with a game in hand. Have to say though, the goal difference, it could come down to it. Plus 63 for Monaco, plus 46 for PSG. That's technically good enough for it to be a point. So, yeah, it's going to go to the wire. This title race, it really is. But sign of champions for PSG to completely cock it up and then go and win it, having been pegged back. So it's definitely one to catch the highlights of if you get an opportunity.
Yeah, great stuff, and yeah, I'm really excited to see how Monaco respond now. Although obviously they are still top, the fact that they're a game behind, it's kind of different being in front than to chasing as such. Although they're not chasing yet, but we'll see how they respond. Last game we want to talk about wasn't a game.
Yes.
Well, you got a bit of a game anyway. Bastia against Lyon. Now, this is a first. We've spoken about Bastia before. Their fans have done some bad things at certain points. Mr. Balotelli, who will be one person who doesn't like them particularly much. Their players have got a bit of a history of being sent off quite a lot this season. This time it was players, fans, stewards. Just explain the sort of mess that happened.
Yeah, it was a mess. To put people in the picture, because I know a lot of people have asked me about this and what's gone on. Are Bastia and Lyon have they got bad blood? It all stems from the first game at the Parc OL, where there was a lot of incidents going on, a lot of fan unrest, and basically what essentially happened at the end of the game was the then manager of Bastia, Francois Ciccolini. He came out with this immortal quote, which you've probably seen all over the media since. Let's settle this like men in Corsica. Which now, obviously, people know that since then, Ciccolini has lost his job. So I think there was a little bit of apprehension coming into this game. You know, would it all kick off again? Would it not kick off again? People were just very sort of sceptical about what would happen. It should be said that Lyon won the corresponding fixture back in was it November? They won by 2-1. But there was 2 goals sent off, Jean-Louis Leca and Kalzak. You won't be surprised, Kalzak sent off. So there was bad blood coming into this game. But what we saw actually at the game was just bizarre. It all started in the warm-up. Obviously, the game was delayed by a good 45 minutes. It depends who you read as to who started. There's always 2 sides to every story. But the Lyon players are warming up. They're just about to finish their warm-up. They're coming off the pitch. Memphis Depay is at the heart of this. He's alleged to have said something to a supporter. All of a sudden, you've got one supporter challenging him, and then out of nowhere, there's a horde of about 20, 30 different fans who have clearly just got straight through any security that there was, if there was any, and they've come racing onto the pitch and essentially invading the pitch and have attacked the players, Depay in particular. There's also footage of a man throwing a punch at Mathieu Gauguelin, who's the Lyon number 2 goalkeeper. And kind of unsurprisingly, I have to say, Lyon were not particularly keen to start the game. I think it was a total of 35 minutes delay before the game was eventually sort of going on. The Furiani, which is the home ground for Bastia, applauding the away side as they came out of the tunnel. So, you know, it has to be said, this is not all the Bastia fans. It's a select group of ultras, if you will, to use an Italian phrase. But so we had the first half. We managed to get the first half underway, and then just at the end of the first half, the goalkeeper Anthony Lopez, who you might recall has a bit of previous for being a bit naughty, crossing out St Etienne's name off of his shirt on a recent game on his Lyon goalkeeper shirt. He crossed out St Etienne as a list of winners of a trophy, so he has a little bit of a history for being a bit naughty, but we don't know whether anything was said. But he went to collect his gloves from the goal mouth, behind which a lot of the Bastia ultras are situated. It's clear that something was said, or somebody had some issue, and then all of a sudden, once again, there are players coming back onto supporters coming onto the pitch. There was sort of getting punches aimed at people. kicks thrown. One particular piece of footage I know I shared with you, John, in our group was a steward who has since been sacked, I'm led to believe, aiming a pretty horrendous-looking kick at Lyon's Mukhtar Dikabi. It's not one out of Jackie Chan movies, it has to be said. It's a quite overweight chap just flinging a limb, but nevertheless, it could have done a lot more damage than it did. And it all kicks off again. There's a player, I think it's El Kaddouri, was doing an interview as is custom in France at half-time, and then all of a sudden you just see this stream of players and supporters running angrily towards each other. It's really bizarre scenes. So naturally, the game was abandoned. To be honest, it should never have gone ahead in the first place, as far as when all the trouble kicked off anyway. The Lyon bus, it took nearly an hour for them to get out of the stadium under the protection of riot police from the Bastia Ultras. According to RMC, which is one of the French reporters over there, or French media outlets, a number of projectiles were thrown at the bus by locals, and the riot police apparently turned tear gas onto the supporters, and as you rightly said, it's a number of results or incidents have resulted in issues with the Bastia fans this season. There was I don't know if you remember all this time ago, but do you remember they played PSG? Lucas Moura was struck with a stick. Do you remember that in the opening game of the season? That was the sort of first highlighted incident. Then you said, as you say, Mario Balotelli was subjected to racist taunts, monkey chants, and whatnot. There's a lot of talk now that this can't go on. The trouble with the French football authorities is that they go one way or the other. They either throw the absolute book at clubs, or they let them away with murder. I don't know which way this is going to go. I personally would like to see a club like this expelled from the league. I think there's enough has happened now for this to not be an isolated incident. And I know it's only a select group of some, but when you've got a ground, it's a very open ground. The Friuli, it's a very kind of easy ground to penetrate stewarding when stewarding is not being done very well. Yes, Bastia have an excuse in the extent that it is only a select few, but you've got to have better security. And when there's an incident gone on like this has happened before, as we said, the stick incident, that should be enough to then have racist abuse. Albeit whether it's rightly or wrongly, Balotelli, is always at the centre of things. He was racially abused. End of story. And whether he courts that abuse or not, it's not acceptable. And that should have been stadium closure for me, or play game behind closed doors, which I think they did for a couple of games. And now here we are again. So I think the only way they're going to learn is if they get expelled from the league. And my biggest concern now is if Bastia somehow survive, which I think the French league will actually get bailed out, because I think Bastia are going to go anyway. But if they somehow manage to survive, you can only imagine what's going to happen when they play Lyon next season. This isn't going to go away. And also there will be other fans who like a little bit of a scrap, Marseille, who might turn up at that ground looking for a little bit of incident. So they've got a marked card now, and I think a season in Ligue 2 would probably be the best for all, given the circumstances. But you just know that they're going to go on a winning run now and end up surviving. So I nothing against Bastia fans who are good level fans, but I think there has to be something done now. And poor old Lyon, off the back of what happened in Besiktas, I know we've got a question on that later on, but yeah, it's a whole mess. And yeah, I feel for Lyon, even though Jordan Ferry certainly got quite handy with his feet. If you watch the replays, he got involved in it, bless him. But no, it's unforgivable. And seeing the players locked in the changing rooms like animals was, it's just not. It's no way acceptable in the modern game for me.
Yeah, I've seen a few different reports saying that Bastia maybe will get docks on points or something like that. I know they had not just sections of the stadium, but they had to play games on the mainland rather than on Kostka itself before. So, I hope the French FA will do something and step in. But anyway, we'll get the if you want to give us the other results, and then I will run through the table.
Yes, absolutely. I shall race through. Oh, if I can find Liga, which I've just disappeared from. Right, so Nice beating Nancy. They're just about in the title race, although I don't think they'll quite have enough legs, but they're back on form. Libias and 2 goals from Jean-Michel Seri, player I love, cancelling out a goal from Dale, who'd actually put Nancy in front at the time of the game. So a good start that, but they couldn't see it out, and that was that 3-1 2-1 win for Nice. Lorient lost again. Normal service has been resumed. Montpellier with 2-0 victory. Budabus and Mpenza with the goals there. Budabus' goal in particular was a cracker, sadly. Rennes beat Lille by 2-0, which leaves Lille still looking over their shoulders a little bit. Mbele and Giovanni Siu with the goals there. Guingamp with another impressive victory over Toulouse. Andy Delors' penalty wasn't enough as Mendy and Briand with the goals for Guingamp, winning that one. Metz drew with Caen, 2 goals apiece. A lovely goal from Sarr. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's a cracker. Santini equalised for Caen. Diabate got what seemingly could be a winner for Metz, only for Ronnie Rodelan, who else for Caen with a minute to go, levelling the scores. Not really a result that was ideal for either club, in truth. And Nantes losing a derby at home, the Pacific Derby at home to Bordeaux. Younes Sankare with the only goal of the game in the 65th minute. And finally, on Sunday night, Marseille turned up for a change. St Etienne very much didn't. 4-0 to the home side. A couple of goals for Florent Thauvin, one for Bafétimbi Gomis, and Dimitri Payet also getting a late goal there.
Lovely stuff. Well, I will run through the table as you frantically search for a game to watch next week. So, as we say, Monaco still top of the table, 77 points, 32 games played. PSG second, tied on points, game played extra. The goal difference plus 63, as Kris said, for Monaco, plus 46 for PSG, so getting even tighter by the day. Nice also 33 games played, 73 points. Then it's all the way back down to 54 points to Lyon in 4th place, 32 games played. Bordeaux behind them on 52, played a game extra. Marseille also played 33 games there on 51 points. Then a bit of a gap again to Saint Etienne in 7th on 45. Then Guingamp 44, Rennes 43, Nantes 42, Toulouse 41, Montpellier in 12th on 39, also on 39 points. Angers, they're just behind them on goal difference in 13th. Lille on 37 points, that's 14th place. Then we get to 15th, that's Metz 36, Caen 33, Nancy 31, Lorient also 31 in 18th place in the playoff spot in the relegation, Dijon 29, and as we say, Bastia are bottom on 28 points. So possible points deduction incoming for them, but we'll see what happens. I'm sure we'll be all over that as soon as it's announced. Kris, game to watch next week?
Yes, no debating this one. Sunday night, 8:15 UK time, Lyon host Monaco. I think that could be quite the spectacle, or it'll be dreadful, one of the two. But it's a must-win game for Monaco. I can't see. It's weird actually because Lyon, ironically, would probably prefer Monaco to win the league, but I can't see them rolling over at the Parc OL. So that one has all the potential to have fireworks, particularly if Monaco get past Dortmund and are on a high. So that is one that even if you're not a fan of French football, I would give that a look.
And just quickly, before we leave France, obviously you already said you fancy Monaco to go through, but Lyon against Besiktas, 2-1 up from the first leg. Fancy them to finish it off in Turkey?
I don't know. It's the honest answer. I can't split it. I think so, but I have a feeling that Besiktas will score, and I think they'll score at least twice. So I think Lyon are going to have to score twice over there as well. I think they'll just about squeak through. It might even go all the way to extra time penalties. But yeah, I think Lyon just about will squeak through. I hope so, anyway.
Cool, lovely stuff. Well, that's everything from France this week.
Splendid. Right. Okay. So that's another week across Europe done. We are going to move on to this week's best of the rest in a second. Just to explain, no Hipster's Choice this week. We've had a little bit of an issue with timings this week, so we'll have to find another player for next week. So apologies. But let's jump into this week's best of the rest because we've got a little bit of a twist. So let's see what we can see. Right, what we're going to do this week is just very, very briefly, it is only going to be a short roundup. We, of course, cover 4 major European leagues on this podcast, France, Spain, Italy and Germany. So we're going to just quickly take a look at what's going on in the leagues below the leagues we cover. So let's start with Joel. Joel, what's going on in the Segunda División? Which sounded a bit more French than Spanish, didn't it? But the Segunda Division to you and I, which is the tier below La Liga. Who's looking likely to come up? Who's the team to watch maybe in the sort of playoff system, and who's having an awful season? Please don't mention Mallorca.
Right, we'll start with Mallorca, because funny you mentioned them. They're actually 20th, 6 points from safety, with about 6 games left. So, looking at the table, I was quite surprised that Mallorca is so far down there. And the likes of Cordoba and Rayo Vallecano are 15th, who came down last season as well. So they've obviously lost Paco Gemes and lost a number of players. They've had a really poor season. They're stuck in 15th. So Mallorca look like they've gone, which is a massive team to be relegated. I think they're moving to regional leagues at that point in Spain, so that's huge for them. Going up, Levante looking to bounce back straight away. They're 9 points clear of second place, and practically promoted because they're 19 points clear. So Levante have done really well. They did keep a number of players, Levante, and what they also did is loaned the best players out as well, so that will get them back when they get back in La Liga. Girona are in second. And then in the playoff system, you've got Oviedo, Cadiz, Getafe, who obviously relegated last season, and Tenerife. My tip for the playoffs would probably be Getafe or Oviedo, and obviously Oviedo, the fan-owned club. So they always get a lot of support, more outside of Spain than in Spain, but they'd be my tip for the playoffs. I think it'd be good to see Oviedo back, but I'm quite surprised at the strength of the Segunda. You're looking at like Zaragoza, Valladolid in there as well, so it's looking like a strong league. But I'd expect obviously Levante to come straight back up, and then potentially Getafe, Oviedo through the playoffs.
Interesting. Some big name clubs down there. And speaking of that, we'll look at the Bundesliga 2, Bundesliga 2, whichever you prefer, or Zweite Bundesliga, some people call it. But anyway, let's get to the point. Stuttgart at top. It's very close, very, very close. Any one of 4 clubs potentially could win the second tier of German football. Stuttgart with a 3-2 victory just last night, actually, over Arminia Bielefeld, with a very late winner from Terod in the last minute. They've got 57 points. They're 1 point clear of Hannover 96, who you recall relegated last term, 56 points, with Union Berlin and Eintracht Braunschweig, who also went down, I think, last season, 54 points apiece for them. So any one of those 4 potentially could still go up. Of course, the top 2 go up, and then the third place team goes into a playoff with the team third bottom of the Bundesliga. So that will be interesting. You have got a couple of teams then, I think they're probably too far adrift realistically. Dynamo Dresden, 46 points. In fact, let's be realistic, 8 points adrift. Greuther Fürth, 40 points, and Heidenheim, and Nuremberg, 7th and 8th. So some big name clubs there. Down at the bottom, Karlsruhe, who a lot of people will be fairly familiar with the name at least, looks like they're going down for a lower trip to the bottom end of or the German third tier. In fact, 22 points. They're 8 points adrift of Arminia Bielefeld, who are still in touch with the teams above them. Eisberg. I said that horribly wrong, haven't I? They're 16th. Probably the biggest name down there, Kaiserslautern, 32 points, 15th. So they are level on points with that team I can't pronounce. 15th. They could realistically go down. There's a whole host of clubs though. St. Pauli, you'll know those very, very well. Wolfsburger Kickers, greatest name in Germany, that is, isn't it? They're also on 32 points. And then on 33 are 1860 Munich. Even Fortuna Düsseldorf and Sandhausen on 35 are not safe. So it's a very, very exciting division in the Bundesliga 2. John, can you match that in Serie B?
Yeah. Do you want the proper name for the team that is top of the table in Serie B?
Oh, this is going to be
the abbreviated one.
we did this last year, didn't we? And it was an absolute cluster mess,
okay,
wasn't it? So
it's Società Polisportiva Est Labor.
Beautifully done.
Which to me and you is SPAL. They are top of the Serie B at the moment, 67 points, 36 games played. It is a 22-team league, so 42 games. So it's still a little while to go, but they're the form team. Frosinone are old mates. They are at the moment they're listed incorrectly in the table. I'll have you know on Soccerway and also on Google when you look it up, because Frosinone are listed as second when actually it should be Hellas Verona. Who are... Oh no, sorry, they've got it the right round. It's Google that's got it the wrong way around. Frosinone are second. It's weird because the goal difference is lower than Hellas Verona, are on the same points in third. In Serie B, this is going to be very confusing. If two teams are tied on points, then it is head-to-head results, then it's head-to-head goal difference to determine who's above who. I don't know why. That's just the rule. Anyway, so SPAL are at the moment looking like they're going to be the automatic spot. Frosinone currently have the second automatic spot. Then it's a playoff. However, Hellas Verona and Frosinone, they are both at the moment 8 points clear of the next team. If they get it to that gap to 9 points, there is no playoff. They automatically get promoted. Yeah, so it's a little bit confusing the way it's worked, but I understand the reasoning behind it. If the points gap is big enough, basically, there's no playoff spot. As for other teams in the league that people might remember, Perugia are in the playoff spots at the moment. Carpi as well, who obviously were up previously, they're just outside it at the moment. Bari as well, just outside that. Cesena are all the way down in 15th. No other real sort of big, well-known names. I did also want to drop down into the third division very quickly. Although it's not actually a division, it's kind of split, like Joel said. It's a bit like a regional playoff thing. Venezia have been promoted. They're going to be in Serie B next season. The reason why we're picking them up is because their manager is Pippo Inzaghi. Doing really well there. He's got them promoted, and generally there's kind of a trend in Italy that if you get promoted from the regional leagues, they do have a very good chance the next season to actually get automatic promotion from Serie B as well. They can tend to keep it going, so maybe a chance for Pippo to be face off against his brother in the big leagues in 2 seasons' time.
Be interesting. How far down is that? How many tiers down is that?
It's the third tier, but the third tier in Italy is broken up into 3 divisions. They're called the Grifone, and it's the Liga Pro. And basically, a team gets automatically promoted to Serie B, and then the teams below that then go into like a knockout cup competition for the remaining places. So it's kind of like a free league tier system that then all play off against each other. It's very strange.
So I suppose in theory then it's not too far away.
Yeah, I mean it's
back,
essentially it is like just an extension of Serie B. It's just regionally done. But as I say, there's quite a few teams that have come from that tier straight into Serie B, won Serie B, and then got into Serie A. So there's a good chance. And they're owned by an American-Italian who helped James Pallotta again at Roma. I think he was on the board there for a brief stint, and then he went and took over at Venezia. So they've got good backing at least.
Yes, definitely one to keep an eye on as far as the lower end of the tables go. Okay, that just leaves us with Ligue 2 then, the Domino's Pizza sponsored Ligue 2 for those keeping track. I know, exciting stuff. Well, Brest, ironic given chicken. Brest? No, let's stop there. They are currently top of Ligue 2, 59 points from their 33 games played. They have a 3-point cushion over Strasbourg, who are quite a famous old name of French football. Second place, Lens, another big name, are third, 55 points. So very much close, and it gets even closer as we go down. Nîmes are in fourth, 54 points. Troyes, who of course got relegated last season, 53 points, and even Amiens SC and Ram 51 points apiece, all the way down to 7th. Technically, any of those could still go up. Top 2 plus a playoff spot in third is the same for Ligue 2, similar to the Bundesliga on that regard. Down at the bottom, Laval looking a bit doomed, but as our Red Star, who've lost 5 on the spin, 30 points bottom for Laval on 20th. Red Star 19th, 31 points. Orleans 31 points also. It looks like those are the three that potentially are going to go. Obviously, one playoff space there, so it depends on who finishes third bottom, in League R. We shall see. But another big name down there, Osea. Remember them, John? 35 points from their 33 games played, 17th in the table. They have 1-2 on the spin. Good job, really, because had they not have done, they'd have been in all sorts of trouble. So potentially, we could see a side as big as Osea dropping out of League 2. I don't think we will, but you never know, depending on other results. So there we go. That's a quick update from the leagues below our respective leagues that we cover. And of course, if there are other leagues or other information you want to know about any of those clubs, let us know and we will do our best to cover them moving forwards. Right, that will do us then for the roundups from across our respective leagues and indeed the best of the rest. So we will finish with your questions answered. It's this week's Onion Bag. Right, in the interest of time, we're just going to rattle through these because it's only a couple of quick questions, so we're going to get these answered. We're going to start with one for Joel, which comes from our very own Josh of our Hipsters pod. It's a bit of a lengthy one, so I'll whip through it, Josh. So, Joel, Josh wants to know, for the main pod, RE Atletico. Out of all of the teams in La Liga, Atletico Madrid have the best success rate from shots taken outside the penalty area. Wow, he's gone full nerd here. Out of the 59 league goals they've scored so far, 13 have been from shots from distance, almost a quarter of that total. The most recent was Carrasco's long-distance strike against Osasuna at the weekend. Is this showing that Simeone has struggled to get his team to truly break teams down efficiently, or effectively, I should say, like they had previously, and have to resort to the tactic of long-range shots? So it's quite a lengthy question, but what do you reckon to Josh's point there?
I wouldn't say struggled. I'd say that Atletico Madrid against the big teams plays the underdog. I'd say Atletico Madrid against most La Liga teams, barring probably Barca, Real Madrid, would play as a team kind of on top. Therefore, teams will sit behind the ball. They probably do lack the creativity that the other two have to break down those teams. So it's not something I've considered, that they do take a lot of long-range shots. Yes, I wouldn't say it's a weakness by me. I'd just say it's a style of play that they've got, and if they've got the ability to shoot outside of the box, then it's something they do. But I would say it's more testament to the fact that they do play as the kind of dominant team in probably 85 to 90% of the games that they play in La Liga. Therefore, they will be camped outside of the opposition's box for long periods, even though it's Atletico Madrid. If you do watch them in La Liga against the lower teams, they do have a lot of the ball and they don't play as much on the counter-attack as they would against the bigger teams.
Yeah, good question, that, Josh. He's clearly been reading or swallowed a textbook this week. He's clearly had too much time on his hands, bless him. But a very good question, nevertheless. Interesting points made. This next question, this one's also for you, Joe, actually, from our friend Tom at 5-Star Flips. He says, what are your thoughts on Andreas Pereira and Sergi Samper this season? Can they take the next step up and play for top teams?
Andreas Pereira has probably been, spoke about Granada earlier, probably been the best player. Obviously on loan from Manchester United. I think it's going to be difficult for him to get into that team now. I think United will go and spend money in the summer. I don't think he'll have done enough in Mourinho's eyes to warrant a place in United's team, but I certainly feel he will get a move within to La Liga and probably next tier team, so a mid-table to top 8 team in La Liga, or he might find his way in England somewhere or somewhere else in Europe. He is a talent and he has stood out for Granada. For Sergi Samper, obviously on loan from Barcelona, he was kind of screwed by the fact that Paco Gémez signed him and then lost his job 7 weeks in. And Paco Gémez is notorious for playing passing football, and Sergi Samper is very much to the Busquets role at Barcelona. So he would have been part of Paco Gémez, and it was part of the reason that Barcelona put him to Granada with Paco Gémez, because they knew that he would play that style of football. As Paco Gémez lost his job, Sergi Samper's chances have become more limited, and he's not done as well as everybody would have hoped. But I think that's largely because he's not been at the right club, and if they could have cancelled the loan, I think they would have done to get him back. Long term, I don't know if he's got a future at Barcelona. Obviously, the change of coach will impact on that, and also they are looking to play more players who've come through La Masia next year to try and get a bit of identity back. So he may fit into that, but I don't think it's helped him playing a season. Not playing a season, if that makes sense, at a key point of his development, because he didn't play many games last season for the first team. He is a talent, but I just don't know if Barcelona will move on in the summer past Sergi Samper.
Yeah, two very, very talented players, which, as you say, it depends where their future lies, but two to keep an eye on nevertheless. Thank you, Tom. There's no love for John this week, is there? Because there's also three questions from France. Ariane H 1999. Do you think Monaco's defence could hurt their chance of competing with PSG? Maybe, although PSG's is not exactly watertight, as we displayed tonight with the Mets game. I think the biggest problem that Monaco are going to face is if they get through Monaco, can they keep the rest of the squad healthy? It's not just the defence, but the whole team. If they get a serious injury to one more player, I think they really are going to struggle. So I hope so.
If they have to play Raji, basically.
Well, yeah, that certainly isn't going to help. But also, if they lose Kylian Mbappe for a long period of time, or Bakayoko in particular in midfield, I do worry about the legs in those areas. So I hope not, let's put it that way. But that being said, PSG are only a couple of big injuries. If they lose Cavani for a long period of time, for example, that could stunt them as well. So not just yet, but you make a fair point. Their defence is not watertight. So that said, they can seemingly outscore everybody. So it's not a bad trait to have. This one's from PG Nez, our good friend. Are we witnessing the end of Bastia? Not just in Liga, but as an actual club, this can't go on. As we touched on earlier, PG, I think I've covered that in the previous roundup. As a club, probably not. There are worse clubs in world football. There's a lot of clubs in world football that have worse reputations. But I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of their supporters turn against the team or against the factions, which could obviously cripple the club longer term. If I had to put money on it, I think they probably will still be around, but big changes need to be made at that club for them to progress to somewhere near a respectable outfit, particularly in their hierarchy, who seem to encourage some of the way this siege mentality that they have in their fan base. So let's hope that they do change for the better. And we also had a question from UZ, Mr. Arsenal 93, who also wanted to know, with incidents in Besiktas, Metz, and Bastia, do you think Lyon are being targeted by fan groups, or are they just unlucky? It's an impossible question to answer. That one is a very good question.
That's just bad luck.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it's bad luck. I mean, Lyon if you look at a club like Marseille, for example, who've got, they're notoriously not well liked supporting wise throughout Europe. There's more likelihood that a club like that would be targeted than a club like Lyon, who
Lyon didn't help themselves in the Besiktas game by letting the tickets go on general sale. Besiktas fans being able to integrate with the Lyon fans, and then also putting, didn't they put them above some of the home fans?
Yeah, recipe for disaster.
You're asking for trouble.
Yeah, I really hope it goes without incident in Turkey. I fear it won't. If I was a Lyon fan, I don't think I'd be making that trip. But then I went to Arsenal Galatasaray in Copenhagen in, was that 2000 and... when was that now? 2000? I think it was 2000. And I think any time... I don't want to pick on Turkish teams because it's not just Turkish teams, but there is a history of violence up there. I mean, obviously, you know as well, John, there's a lot goes on in Italy, similar with the Ultras as well. Sort of particular fixtures where it seems to go off more regularly than others. So it's just such a hard thing to sort of pick out and say.
Lyon have just had an unfortunate run of games that
they have
happened to be against particular opposition. The Bastia one is, I thought something was always going to happen in that, and the Besiktas one, if you allow tickets to be sold to away fans in the home end, you're asking for trouble, sadly, regardless of who it's against, whether it's Besiktas or anyone.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Okay, we'll finish with this final question. I'm not going to answer it because I'm the host and I don't have to. Ha 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 ha. So I'm going to get you two to answer it. Also comes from Tom, 5-star flips. It's another pearl of a question once again. If you could pick a 3-year period in your respective leagues where the top ranked teams were at their strongest, when would it be and why? I know Joel's got an answer prepared, so I'll start with him. What do you reckon, Joel?
I would say, it's going to sound quite strange because you're Barcelona. I'd say right now, the top three in Spain are probably the strongest they've been. And I think the reason I say that is if you look at a Spanish team, Real Madrid won it in 2013, fought in the Champions League. Barcelona won it the following season. Madrid won it the following season. And I think we could see a Spanish team win, probably not Barcelona this season, but a Spanish team win Champions League again. So I feel this period is particularly being strong for Spain. I think those three, although Barcelona having a poor season by their standards, they are still really strong. And I think the three teams, all completely different, but all equally as strong. So I'd say this period now is probably the height of the top ranking teams in Europe. Largely just basing that on Champions League past winners for the last three seasons. And also on that, just obviously we've had Sevilla win the Europa League for I think what was it, 4 on the trot up until this season when they wasn't actually in it. So I think that also highlights the depth of the league as well. I know it's not the top ranking team, but it does highlight the depth.
Yeah, well said. And John, can you match that? Because I think back to the years where there was a 4 or 5 way title race in Italy. Seems like a long, long time ago now, though. Where's John gone?
Oh, sorry. There I am.
That's all right.
I pulled a Kris or a Gimli, as we know.
You went on mute then, didn't you?
Yeah.
What a shit show.
It's difficult because when a team's done really well in Europe from Italy, they've generally really dominated the league. Obviously, Juventus are the biggest club in terms of winning titles. If Juventus can go on to win the Champions League this season and continue to perform the way they are at the moment in Europe and in the league, then possibly this might be starting from this season onwards. Could be the top 3 years, but it pains me to say, I have to say it, the best period really for Serie A has got to be 87 to 1990 and AC Milan. They got relegated. They were in trouble for certain things they shouldn't have been, and Berlusconi came in, bought the club, and brought in a guy called Arrigo Sacchi who not a lot of people knew about, and he completely changed the way Italians viewed football. You didn't have to defend all the time. He brought in the 3 Dutchmen, Gullit, Van Basten. Who am I forgetting? The other one. Oh God, Rijkaard.
Rijkaard.
Yeah. Sorry, he was the third one in, wasn't he? And it kind of changed the whole philosophy of the club. You've got Ancelotti there. Donadoni was in that team as well. Baresi, Costa, Maldini. It was just a ridiculous side. And they're the last team to win the European Cup back to back. No one's done it since. So for where they were as a club to where they got to, and they just dominated, and they played amazing football as well. I hate saying it, but they really did play just spectacular football. And I think they won an award, which I think the only other team who've ever won it, because it's only been given twice, I think was to Barcelona, and it was probably the Barca Pep team, and it was the best team of like more than a decade or something like that. And that Milan team was the first team that ever won that award. I do think it is an Italian award, to be fair, so there is a little bit of bias, but I know that I think they awarded it to Barcelona at one point as well. So yeah, just absolutely dominant and ridiculously good at football. And I hate them.
It pains
yeah.
you. Yeah, I can hear the pain coming out in your voice. Do you want the world's greatest cop-out answer to finish? That I'll give.
Go on then.
Okay. The best season for French football, for Liga, is as far as competitiveness, is next season, because next season you're going to have at least 5 teams capable of winning the championship. So I'm calling that now. You're going to have PSG will be fully focused on the Champions League, which will open the door for other clubs to catch up. Monaco will still be in the shake-up, even though they're going to sell half their squad. Marseille will be up there just because they're going to spend a boatload of money in the summer. Lyon will be up there as long as they can hold on to, or at least improve the squad when they ship Lacazette and Tolisso out, which they will. And the one to keep an eye on, the sleeper team, you all know it's coming, Lille. Assuming that Marcelo Bielsa does decide that he actually fancies this job, despite giving his word that he'll take it. Lazio fans, look away now. There's still a chance, of course, that he could turn around in mid-flight and decide not to take the job. But assuming he does, and the sort of money that Lille are talking about throwing around in the summer, I think it would be foolish to rule them out of a Renaissance as well. I've said the word Renaissance 3 times in tonight's pod. Love it. So there you go. There's a real cop-out answer for you. But how fun would it be if any of our leagues had 5 challenges? I think that'd be really fun. So, and of course, you can't rule out Nice as well. A lot of that depends on how they invest in the summer. So, there you go. There's my beautiful cop-out answer to finish with. You gotta love that. Right, okay, we will draw a line under our podcast for another week there then. Thank you very much for all your questions. Much appreciated. We do like answering your questions, or as best we can. We will, of course, finish with our usual promo code if you want to get a bit of money off at classicfootballshirts.co.uk. Do give them a look. It's one of those websites that I can just trawl through looking at old kits going, oh, I like that one. So if you get bored one night and you fancy spending a little bit of your hard-earned dollar, get along to their website, and if you use the offer code CFSAW10, you will get yourself a lovely 10% off, which is nice, isn't it? And as usual, you can follow us on Twitter at the FH Podcast, where you can get your questions in. If you got a question and you think, oh, I'm going to forget that, send it via a DM to us. If we don't follow you, by the way, please give us a nudge and we will follow you back. Everyone that follows us, we will follow back, as long as you're not a bot or trying to flog something, because we haven't really got time to push products. But other than that, we will follow you back. And of course, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, on SoundCloud, and on iTunes. We welcome any reviews that we get on any of those platforms, or indeed if you share our podcast with anybody you know, we do greatly appreciate it. And just a quick reminder, the English Breakfast delayed edition was out last night, so you can get along and listen to that. And indeed, you can still listen to all of our back catalogue, and in the summer, we will be doing some things, we're just not sure what. So stay tuned at the end of the season. But we've got a long way to go before that stage comes around. So my thanks to John and to Joel. We'll be back with a podcast, all being well, on Thursday to cover the European action. So thank you both, gentlemen, for your time this evening.
Cheers, Chris.
Cheers, Chris.
And keep it tuned. As I say, get those questions coming in as usual. And we will speak to you on next week's podcast.